You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, welcome to the Reefer Reporters with Glenn Prentice and myself, Cindy Howell. It is November 24th. We are only a month away from Christmas Eve. I know, shh. And we are live here from the Legacy 420.com news desk on the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network YouTube channels and Facebook pages. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Cindy. How are you?
Well, you know, I've been dabbing sativa during our pre-show chat, so I'm pretty chatty. I was so chatty that Glenn looked at me at 11 o'clock and said, okay, enough now, it's 11. And I went, oh, shit. And here we are. We got started on time. That's good. We've got 10 stories coming at you today. We are going to okay, things are popping up on my screen and I'm going to close them before we go over. We're going to take right off and head to the first of the first four. We are headed over to StratCan. Quebec sold nearly $140 million worth of cannabis in the second quarter.
In the most recently reported fiscal quarter, the SQDC saw $139.1 million in sales with an overall net income of $22.3 million. The province also brought in an additional $33.6 million in their share of the federal excise tax of $47.1 million in total.
Oh, they brought in 33.6.
Yeah,
47.1. Wow.
That's tax. That's just tax on it.
That's just tax. Yeah. And this is coming from the most backward province there is when it comes to cannabis. The sales in the most recent quarter were down slightly, 3.9 million compared to the same period last year, where the province saw 142 million in sales. The SQDC sold 25,095 kilograms of cannabis during this most recent quarter. Despite the drop relative to last year, sales were up slightly compared to the previous quarter. In the first quarter, 2022, sales generated 54 million for the Quebec government, with the Crown Corporation posting a net income of 20.5 million and another 33.5 million in taxes, again, coming from the most backward province with cannabis.
Yeah. The SQDC blames this stagnation of sales on the ongoing strike, which continues in 22 of their 90 branches. Although these branches are still open, they are operating at reduced hours and face picket line pressures. The provincial organization is still negotiating with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, which represents 28 of its 90 branches. 22 of them have been on strike since May 20th and are operated by managers on a reduced schedule. In September, the Superior Court of Quebec issued an injunction to limit union pressure tactics against the SQDC. Now, I have a question, Cindy. What about medical patients that can't access their medicine in a timely manner because of a strike?
Well, most medical patients are that get from the LP order online and have it delivered to their home.
Okay, so there's no slowdown in that?
Well, you would hope not, right? Because everybody gets to pick their own LP. There's, close to 200 of them. Yeah. And when I was ordering from the licensed producers, I would go online, I'd pick what I wanted. I'd pay by debit or credit, and they would ship me my cannabis. And the post office man would knock on my door and say, here you go.
And what happens if they unionize and go on strike?
The licensed producers?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think they're going to unionize.
I don't think anybody was going to unionize before, but it happens.
Yeah, it does, but I honestly just can't see that happening, and that's something that I would say, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because why bother turning ourselves gray worrying about that at this moment when we've got so much else to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, and I can't see you, but I'm looking at my wall as if I'm looking at you. It's hilarious. In June, members of a different union, the Confederation of National Trade Union, the CSN, voted to accept an agreement with the SQDC for increased wages, hours, and better working conditions. That's what inflation is doing to us. Like other provinces, the majority of sales are through brick and mortar storefronts. The majority of the 3.2 million transactions through the SQDC 3.2. Okay, let's get to, we're through the now 90 stores operating. I'm sorry, I just had to find out where the end of that thing was and I couldn't see it. So the majority of the 3.2 million transactions through the SQDC were through the now 90 stores operating in the province, while just over 5% of the sales were through the SQDC's online store for a total of 6.6 million.
Net operating expenses for the SQDC totaled 21.5 million for a ratio of 15.5% of sales. The province has been expanding and changing its approach to cannabis. The SQDC introduced a 90-minute delivery service for the greater Quebec City region and certain localities in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. Currently, in the test phase, the program could be rolled out more widely in the coming months.
The province also introduced several new cannabis edibles that adhere to the province's strict limits on such products, namely cannabis-infused oven-baked beets, dehydrated cauliflower, and dried figs, and cannabis bites. Interesting. Made of dates, hemp hearts, sunflower seeds, currants, and cinnamon. They are produced by Ontario producer Fira under the Solari brand. Earlier this year, the SQDC's president and CEO, Jax Farsi, told StratCan that the province plans to begin shifting from adding new stores to refining consumer experience, including a new small lot program to introduce new unique products into the market.
And if the pilot project is successful, based on producer and consumer feedback, the SQDC plans on fully implementing the program in April-May 2023. Quebec reinvests its cannabis revenue in cannabis prevention and research, and to combat any harm related to the use of psychoactive substances. As of September 10th, 2022, the SQDC had 1,036 employees within its network and head office.
In comparison, British Columbia, which has about 5.3 million residents compared to Quebec's 8.5 million, sold just under 110 million worth of cannabis in the first quarter, while Ontario's second quarter results showed $394 million in sales. Ontario's population is about 15 million, while Quebec has about 70 stores. Their most recent in their most recent reporting period, BC had around 440 and Ontario has 1,100. Holy
wow.
We have 49 here in Nova Scotia.
Wow. I think you have more in Nova Scotia. I don't know the number here, but it seems like a very small number here.
Yeah, the last I heard, I think it was 24 for New Brunswick, but that wasn't including the farm gate.
The farm gate. And there's only a couple of those now.
4 of them. So 24, 28, if I'm right. Because the last I heard, and things could have changed since then, there were 12 government-run stores, 12 privately run stores, and then the few farm gates.
And there's more on the reserve down the street than there is in the entire province.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking just, government stores like here that are funded. They're funded by government stuff. So yeah, it's but yeah, if you include all of the gray area or legacy market or whatever you want to call them dispensaries here, we're we've got quite a few, nowhere near what Quebec or Ontario or BC have, but
yeah.
We just got a message for you. Saying that our boss is very happy that you're feeling better, and he's happy to see you back at the chair today.
Well, thank you very much, Al. I'm feeling better, but not well.
Yes, better, but better is good. I'm still hoping when you come back with us next Thursday that you're going to be at 100%.
I am hoping myself.
Absolutely. Off to our next story. We are heading over to MJ Biz Daily. Canadian adult use cannabis sales stay flat in September.
Monthly Canadian sales of legal adult use cannabis barely increased between August and September, totaling 389.9 million Canadian dollars. The cannabis sales total in August was revised downward also to Canadian 389.9 million by National Data Agency Statistics Canada.
On an annual basis, Canadian recreational cannabis sales have increased 12.2% since September 2021. Pardon me. Monthly cannabis sales in Ontario, the largest provincial market in Canada, grew 1.1% month over month to 155.5 million in September.
In the second largest market, Alberta, sales increased 2% on a monthly basis to Canadian $68.7 million. And British Columbia's September sales were up by 0.6% over August to Canadian $59.4 million. Those gains in Canada's three most valuable provincial cannabis markets were offset by month-over-month declines in the remaining 7 provinces.
Yeah, so Quebec has gone down 2.5%, Manitoba 0.2% down, Saskatchewan 3.1% down, Nova Scotia went down 4.5%, New Brunswick beat us by 4.9%, Newfoundland and Labrador went down just over 6%, and PEI went down just over 15%.
Wow.
In the Yukon Territory, September cannabis sales were worth $1 million, a decline of 1.5% from August. So, that could have stuff to do with with inflation as well. People just don't have the money to go and purchase.
Yeah, that's very true. Food's the most important thing. So.
Statistics Canada did not report cannabis retail sales figures for the Northwest Territories or Nunavut. Overall sales of all retail goods in Canada declined by 0.5% on a monthly basis from August to September. So there you go. It's gone down a little bit. And I really think that has to do with inflation. I mean, if you take a look at our gas prices over September, it was pretty flippin' gross.
Yeah. And imagine we're going to get hit with heating costs and everything now in the winter. So people have less money to begin with.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also too, a lot of people probably had some early cut downs. So they were smoking their own cannabis as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors in that for sure. For sure. Off to our next story. We're heading back over to StratCan. More testing is needed to address heavy metals in vapes, or those little cartridge cannabis vapes, researchers say.
A new research paper showing evidence of high levels of heavy metals in vape pens suggests the government should require more testing and labeling to help better protect consumers. The study, a partnership between Health Canada's Office of Cannabis Science and Surveillance and the National Research Council's Meteorology Research Center, found evidence of high concentrations of some metals in cannabis vape liquids from both the legal and illegal markets in Canada.
Several of the samples, 20 legal, 21 legacy. I'm just going to change that word here.
Yeah.
We're both getting dinged here. Significantly exceeded the established tolerance limits for elemental impurities in inhaled products that are established by the European Pharmacopoeia. These samples of cannabis vape liquids from the OCS on the legal side and from Ontario Provincial Police on the legacy side, because they stole it from us, were analyzed for metals that are commonly tested for in cannabis, such as arsenic, cadmium, whatever, mercury, and lead. These are not in cannabis. These elements can be present from fertilizers, pesticides, and environmental reasons. Well, they can, but if you flush your cannabis properly, it's not going to be in there.
Yeah. These samples were also then tested for metals that could be present due to the leaching from the metallic parts of the vaping devices themselves, such as cobalt, chromium, copper, iron, and several others. Research suggests that the potentially high acidity of cannabis vape liquids can cause these metals to leach into the cannabis oil itself. The concentrations of arsenic, mercury, and cadmium in all of the tested samples were within the generally accepted tolerance limits, but the concentration of lead exceeded the tolerance limit in one legal vape pen and 6 illegal ones. Levels of nickel were, in some cases, 900 times above the established limits in several illegal samples.
And that could possibly be people purchasing what they can at the cheapest they can from countries that don't pay attention to that. I personally like to use the ceramic ones. Then you can avoid the majority of that.
Yep.
Just, what I what I prefer. I also feel like I get a better taste off that. Only a few of the tested samples exceeded the limits for cobalt and vanadium. I don't know if I said that right. And several samples from both markets were above the limits for chromium, copper, nickel, and lead. Several of the samples from the illicit market showed lead concentrations up to 100 times higher than the allowable limit. Researchers also noted variations in the concentrations of heavy metals in samples from the same products brought at the same time from the same production line.
Wow. All vape pens tested were no more than 8 months old, based on available packaging dates. The report noted that other research had shown increasing levels of leaching from nicotine vape products that have sat on shelves for more than 2 years, suggesting the same process could apply to cannabis vape pens as well. Several of the other publications have identified metal particles in the aerosol generated from nicotine vape devices. The vape devices in these studies were heated and cooled multiple times to mimic normal consumer use better, leading to speculation that this process could add to degeneration of the metal into the vape liquid. Wow.
So basically, I feel like we're learning here that we have to be better at picking the parts that we put our liquid into.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, the products used in this study did not undergo such treatment. Researchers suggest this could point to other sources of contamination, such as the stainless steel aerosol tube and the core of the electrical connector, as a likely source to detect particles. The health concerns due to the inhalation of these heavy metals, especially in often very fine aerosol particles, are significant.
Inhaled metals are quickly absorbed through the respiratory tract and can be further transported to other organs. Researchers highlight that the lungs are particularly susceptible to nickel toxicity, with adverse effects ranging from lung inflammatory changes to induced rhinitis and sinusitis or allergic dermatitis. Even low exposure to inhaled lead can result in an increased risk of cardiovascular and kidney diseases. An inhalation of chromium and copper can lead to reduced lung function and increased risk of asthma, respiratory irritation, or chest pain.
I mean, this is kind of why we took lead out of paint, right?
Yeah.
Adding to this, the presence of nasonized metal particles in vape aerosol is also a significant health concern. These very small particles can penetrate deep into the lungs, where they can be more easily absorbed and react even more strongly within the body. The uneven heating potential of many cannabis vape pens is also a concern, as high levels of heat can potentially create additional new dangerous compounds.
Because of this high presence of heavy metals in even legal vape pens, researchers in this paper suggest Health Canada and other cannabis regulators should consider requiring additional testing for heavy metals. Testing should also be required after cannabis has been processed into a vape liquid, not only the raw cannabis inputs, as Health Canada currently requires, adds the paper. It also suggests that Health Canada could require more information about the metal components of vape devices, along with the filling date of the vape device, to help consumers make more informed choices and standards for vaping device construction and the materials used, just as you said.
Absolutely. In the past, the OPP, along with the National Research Council, have provided testing information on illicit vape products' high levels of unapproved pesticides and inaccurate THC listings. British Columbia and New Brunswick have released similar results from illicit products seized in those provinces. Health Canada is expected to announce restrictions on some flavorings for cannabis vape pens soon. The proposed amendments were expected to be registered in 2022.
And these proposed amendments would restrict the production, sale, promotion, packaging, or labeling of inhaled cannabis extracts from having a flavor other than the flavor of the cannabis, and would apply equally to inhaled cannabis extract sold for both medical and non-medical purposes.
Well, I'm all for that, because I'm one that I've never really enjoyed. Like I don't get these carts very often. I've got a CBN one for sleep to help me sleep. and I've gotten them here and there and a couple of places. And the only ones I really seem to 100% enjoy are the ones that, that taste like the cannabis. I enjoy my joint because I can taste my cannabis. I enjoy my bong because I can taste my cannabis. I like my dabs because I can taste my cannabis. So if you're going to get me onto a cart, it better taste like my cannabis, right? So
I have a favorite cannabis called Humber Valley Kush. And the flavor, as long as it's grown properly, organically, is amazing.
Now I'm going to have to find this and try it.
Al has it.
I'm going to have to reach out to Al and have a little chat. Hey, buddy. We are going to go on to our final story before the break. We are bumping back over to MJ Biz Daily. 10 years after legalization, that's right, 10, I'm not talking about Canada, Washington state cannabis growers face headwinds.
Washington state's resident voted to legalize adult use cannabis 10 years ago this month. And in that time, the market has been a success, but not for everyone. And the challenges have been substantial. As the state's recreational marijuana or cannabis industry has grown and matured over the past decade, some of the primary issues today include
a lack of access to capital. The state's residency requirements hinder outside investment. Low wholesale prices. Craft and small cultivators confront an oversupplied flower market. Limited social equity opportunities for minority cannabis entrepreneurs. But even with those challenges, that's not to say the market as a whole hasn't done what it was intended to do, which was to create a state licensed economy for legal cannabis companies.
And in the 2022 MJ Biz Fact Book estimates adult use sales in Washington state retail stores this year at $1.5 billion to $1.7 billion and reaching $2.3 to $2.5 billion by 2026. In 10 years, we went from medical patients being afraid they would lose their house because their neighbors would call the police on them to soccer moms now serving cannabis at cocktail parties, said Jessica Tonani, the CEO of Verta Bio, a Seattle-based cannabis company specializing in plant research.
We have come an extremely long way. We sure have. Tanani made those comments last week while on a panel with fellow Washington cannabis business owners hosted by State Liquor and Cannabis Board, the LCB. Like other long-running adult use cannabis markets such as Oregon and Colorado, Washington state growers are experiencing low wholesale flower prices as cultivators continue to flood the market.
And this year, cultivators had a strong growing season with little or no adverse weather events, which led to a bumper harvest. Add that to an already oversupplied market and prices are sure to fall even lower. Ryan Savigny, a cannabis grower and president of Landrace Brands in the Seattle area, said the hurdles are mounting.
The industry today is a tough place to be a farmer, particularly if you are small and would consider yourself craft, he added. Shannon Vetto, CEO of Evergreen Market, a cannabis retail company in the Seattle area, echoed that, saying craft growers are hurting the most, and being a farmer right now is so hard.
We have the best crops coming out in October and no one to buy them. For several years, the state has been weighing whether to allow small cannabis farmers to sell directly to consumers, similar to how wineries and breweries are allowed to operate. Savigny favors the move, but he would also like to see a discussion about defining craft cultivation licenses. Vetto added that while retailers are nervous about direct sales, she believes craft growing is a primary part of our ecosystem, and we have to find a way to do that.
Other cultivation hurdles cited include the challenge cultivation business faced when state regulators changed the rules around cannabis usage, which forced some growers to alter their cultivation plans. The state's excise tax rate at 37%.
Wow.
Oh, holy frig. On adult use cannabis is by far the highest such tax in the United States / world, maybe. The average tax rate, including the excise tax and state and local sales taxes, totals 46.2%. Holy shit, which pushes some consumers to the illicit market. Yeah.
Another long-standing complaint among industry officials is a lack of access to capital because by law, cannabis business entrepreneurs must reside in Washington state for at least 6 months before obtaining a license. Allowing out-of-state capital would level the playing field, Vetto said. According to Vetto, cannabis multi-state operators operators already fighting the restrictions.
Yeah, we have some of the best growers in the nation as well as some of the best operators, but I think we're losing ground at some level, Vito added. For Jim Mocoso, president of Lucid Lab Group in Seattle, that lack of access to capital is a major obstacle to society, to social equity gaining more traction in the Washington state market. According to data self-reported to the LCB in 2020, less than 20% of cannabis retail owners identified as minorities.
Lifting the ban on outside investment is one component that could completely change the landscape for small and mid-sized businesses, Mocoso said. The concern from social equity standpoint is if we enable outside investment, larger companies will be able to come in and do what these large companies have done in other states, which is take a big foothold, have a huge amount of capital, and push out products at lower margins to take advantage of higher volumes, he added. Yep.
Certainly, that's a risk, and one you can't mitigate away from. But Mocoso said the risk to the industry is worth it. For social equity applications, we need thriving industry for that. You need access to capital, he said.
One possible solution to many of the challenges in the market has been the potential advent of interstate commerce in the event of federal legalization. To that end, an official from the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Board met on Monday with Washington state regulators, including Director Rich Garza, so LCB staff could learn more about an Oregon law intended to petition the state for interstate commerce should the federal government act.
In 2019, Oregon Governor Kate Brown signed into law the bill that would permit the state to enter into agreements to export cannabis to other states. The federal government must first lift its cannabis prohibition for Oregon's export law to take effect. I wish that they would just legalize it down there and get it over with. Savini said that oversupply could quickly evaporate it if that comes to fruition.
Access to capital also factors into interstate commerce. Washington companies would need to scale up quickly if the state wants to function as an export market, which seems likely with its abundant sun-grown cannabis. Tonani sees an opportunity where a lot of states might come online that have no infrastructure to grow right now. Yep, sounds possible.
Yeah. So I'm just clicking.
It comes to the same thing always again. Remove from Schedule 1, and it would be a lot freer. The banks could actually finance people. Money could flow a lot freer, and product could flow a lot freer. Yeah.
No, very true. They wouldn't be scared to send it on a truck from one state to the other if you have to go through an illegal state. It's terrifying. And fingers crossed, we will see that happen in our lifetime. But with that, it's time for our medication break. Woohoo! Glenn and I will be right back after our medication session. And you are watching the Reefer Reporters here on the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network, YouTube channel, and Facebook pages.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? people advocating cannabis education.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we're back. We are back. Glenn and I we just had our medication session completed, and we're gonna get the show completed. We got 4 more stories coming at you. I didn't get that last dab in. I had to turn it off just as we came back. I thought I might have enough time, but I didn't. That's okay. So we've got 4 more stories coming at you, including the Mushie Moment. Yeah. You ready?
I'm ready.
We're ready. Okay, we are heading over to Market Watch. We were just actually talking about this cannabis banking bill and retirement package. Both could actually pass Congress by year's end, analysts say.
Maybe. It has been a long road from Washington's banking bill and an unrelated measure targeting the U.S. retirement system. But both legislative packages have decent or even strong chances of becoming reality by year's end, according to analysts. The bill aims to protect financial institutions that work with the cannabis industry. Lots of letters and lots of things. Plus, known as the Safe Banking Plus, with the plus referring to its expected inclusion of some criminal justice reform provisions.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is there. The cannabis banking bill has a roughly 70% chance of passing by the end of December, reckons Ben Colton, Director of Research at Beacon Policy Advisors. There's a lot of positive momentum. It's just can they come to agreement over some of the details that are outstanding, Colton told Market Watch.
And Cowan Washington Research Group is also a bullish on the measure, putting its chances at 75%, up from 60% in October. We are increasingly optimistic that Congress will enact the SAFE Act on cannabis banking by the year end. We now set 75% probability for passage based on the election outcome. The passage of our cannabis research bill and the broader progress the Senate made over the last 2 weeks on other bills, said Cowan analyst Jarrett Seelberg in a note on Monday. And I'm wondering how this Safe Banking Act is going to work if it's still a Schedule 1. They can't do anything with it.
Yeah. I think the main thing that the Safe Banking Act will do will be speed up removing it from a Schedule 1.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's I don't know. It's a thought. In this month's midterm elections, Republicans won a narrow majority in the House of Representatives, while Democrats maintained control of the Senate. As GOP hopes for a red wave were dashed. Analysts at Evercore ISI and Hite Capital Markets are more downbeat on the Safe Banking Plus bill's chances. However, they're not throwing in the towel.
The parameters of the deal are pretty easy to imagine, but I'm getting the sense that Republicans feel like Democrats are asking for too much in terms of concessions. Plus, in the Safe Plus, as part of a deal, said Tobin Marcus, Evercore senior U.S. policy and politics strategist. Marcus puts the legislation chances for passage during the current lame duck session at around 40% or lower.
Ooh, Benjamin Salisbury, Heights Research Director, said in a note on Wednesday that Safe Banking Plus stands a decent chance of being passed by the end of the year, but his shop's odds remain at 35 to 40% given the lack of text and announcement of compromise. We should expect to hear additional rumblings and progress once Congress returns November 29th, Salisbury added. He also warned that lame duck sessions are often overrated.
Financial institutions have faced legal problems because cannabis remains illegal on the federal level, even as more states legalize it. Lobbyists over the years have emphasized that many cannabis businesses end up unbanked and operating largely in cash, and that makes them targets for robberies and other crimes. The House passed the Safe Banking Act in 2021 and 2019, but getting the Senate's okay has proved much trickier. Excuse me.
Pain in the ass. Absolute pain in the ass. The retirement bill, well, we're not really here for the retirement side. So, but there's a little bit there with the retirement bill as well, if you wanted to go take a gander. But like, I mean, that's pretty much what's going on with the Safe Banking Act. So they're coming back in 5 days, November 29th. And maybe we'll have more answers.
Maybe. It's a lame duck session. We'll see.
Yes. And I'm learning about politics as we go along here too, because I don't know much about politics. So I've learned a lot being a Reefer reporter here at the Pace Radio Network. And
I find U.S. politics absolutely fascinating, especially since Trump was elected, because it's gone. I was going to say a rude way, but it's gone downhill a lot. Let's just say that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have your knowledge here. For sure. On to the next story. Heading over to High Times. Thailand cannabis advocates rally after lawsuit challenges the decriminalization.
The Central Administrative Court in Thailand accepted a lawsuit challenging the country's decriminalization order. The future of Thailand's cannabis industry is up in the air after a new legal challenges could bring everything to a screeching halt. In response, advocates in the country are mobilizing today in Bangkok to fight back.
An order issued by Thailand's public health minister effectively removed cannabis from the country's Category 5 narcotics list on June 9th. Under those regulations, cannabis and hemp cultivation and commerce were legalized. Restaurants and cafes are permitted to sell food and beverages infused with cannabis. Oh my God. But only if they contain no more than 0.2% THC. Products with higher concentrations of THC are permitted, but only for medical purposes. Well, that's okay. I'll bring my prescription. Things didn't go over well with the opposition, however, and Thailand's cannabis industry was slammed for its lack of basic controls. The opposition argues that Health Minister Newton called social problems for the country. Caused social problems for the country and violated local and international laws by issuing the decriminalization order. In response to the growing criticism, the public health minister announced new ministerial rule to better control the promotion and sale of cannabis flower, but the law has not yet taken effect.
The Central Administrative Court on Monday accepted a lawsuit spearheaded by Smith Sisront of Thailand's Medical Council and MPs from opposition political parties who seek to revoke the decriminalization order. Sinsont is a member of the Medical Council and president of the Forensic Physicians Association of Thailand. His lawsuit names Karna Kaval and the Narcotics Control Board as co-defendants. The political parties opposed to cannabis include Move Forward, Pheu Thai, Thai Liberal, Thai People Power, and Par Kachet parties. Cannabis advocates in the area, however, aren't going to accept the current legal challenge and are making efforts to have their voices heard.
One of Thailand's top cannabis advocates, Chokwan Kitty Chapaka, announced on Facebook that she and other dispensary owners would rally together at noon on November 22nd at the government house in Bangkok to protest against the lawsuit that could end everything. Dropping by different dispensaries around Sukhumvit, to
Nice.
invite them
Got it.
to attend. Thank you. The protest tomorrow, which went better than what I thought. I guess having your business threatened can make people quite active. Chopika posted on Facebook, translated, from her natural language.
Yeah. I apologize if I could not personally invite every dispensary, and I would like to take this time to invite all dispensaries to come out and protest against the Narcotics Control Board recriminalizing cannabis again, which means that all dispensaries may get shut down. Those that do not want their businesses shut down, those that do not want their investment disappeared, those that do not want to hide their grow again, those that want to sell cannabis legally, those that do not want to go back to getting piss tested, those that want to see cannabis stay legal, come and join us.
Mm-hmm. ABC News reports about 200 people showed up to the rally at the government house in Bangkok. We want to ensure that these politicians are not trying to put cannabis on the narcotics list again. If that happens, our fight for years will mean nothing. One of the coordinators of Cannakin, a network of cannabis decriminalization supporters, told the Associated Press. A proposed bill, the Cannabis Act, would implement a Newton's decriminalization policy and would be introduced in Parliament on November 23rd.
Another advocate, Sonarat Beer, owner of Sukhumvit Dispensary, announced that another group will gather at the Ministry of Public Health to discuss the upcoming Cannabis Act with Charnival. We aim to create mutual understanding on benefits that cannabis will bring, Beer stated. We insist that decriminalizing cannabis brings benefits to several sectors, from tourism to economy to agriculture. Opposition leaders say that it's better to put cannabis back on the country's banned narcotics list until the proper legislation is put into place.
Absolutely. Okay.
And I call BS on that one because it's been shown to be safe from the world.
Yeah, and they've given freedom, and now they're going to take it away. And I mean, they're already, well, they're restricting it to 0.2% THC unless you have a medical license. So I mean, essentially they've legalized hemp.
What is 0.2 even? Is what's worth nothing.
Well, if you're hunting for THC, you're not going to get the psychoactive effect that a lot of recreational people are looking for. Now, I'm sure that the 0.2% THC probably comes with a higher CBG, CBN, CBD ratio, and medically that's not necessarily bad, but it's 0.2% for recreational is going to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. No. Absolutely nothing. Oh, now we're hitting to my favorite publication, The Fresh Toast. Woo-hoo. 5 signs that it's time for a cannabis detox.
There are some universal red flags that you can look out for to see if it might be time for you to put down the bong and give cannabis a break. With winter and the holidays fast approaching, elastic-waisted sweatpants and mid-afternoon sunset have also reemerged. The dawn of the holiday season not only brings cheer, but also tends to bring some lethargy and increased consumption. You may have already noticed a bit of the cold weather might gain weight gain as your activity has decreased. Maybe your cannabis consumption has increased, but more hours are spent indoors.
Perhaps your cannabis consumption has even increased a little too much, but determining when your cannabis habit has become a bit more than a habit can be a bit tricky. Knowing when it's time to take a break from cannabis is an individual decision with many variables at play. Still, there are some universal red flags that you can look out for to see if it might be time for you to put down the bong and give weed a break. Here are 5 clear signs that it's time for you to take a cannabis detox.
Your cannabis budget keeps expanding. One of the easiest signs to notice that maybe it's time to cool it on cannabis is purely financial. This warning sign is relatively easy to track. Just check your bank account. If you notice you are spending a lot more money on cannabis than normal, it usually means 2 things. For one, you are definitely getting high more often than you used to. It also means that your tolerance has gone up. As we reported in the past, the more you use cannabis, in turn, the more you need to consume to achieve the same effect. If your tolerance and cannabis budget has more than doubled going into the holidays, perhaps a tolerance break is in order. At the very least, it will help you get cannabis back cannabis budget back to a manageable number.
You're getting high when you shouldn't is the second one. Another sign that you are in need of a cannabis detox is if you find yourself getting high in situations where it is not socially acceptable or downright illegal. If, for example, I did that for like years. If, for example, you are driving around aimlessly while high, this is a big red flag. If you are showing up high to work and hoping the boss doesn't notice, then you should probably take a sober look in the mirror and see how you can change this behavior. Worse, if you have lost your job, sacrificed relationships, or had other negative impacts due to getting high when you shouldn't, you should really think about taking a break. These impacts are often caused by cannabis dependence. Some of these things are hard to say, which can happen when we rely on cannabis or any substance as a crutch.
If you feel like you need it for certain activities, there is truth to the saying that too much of a good thing. While cannabis can be deeply therapeutic, if abused, just like pretty much any substance, it can have harmful effects. While cannabis is not very physically addictive, at least not in the way that nicotine, opioids, or alcohol are, it can lead to dependence in some. Cannabis use disorder is defined by the CDC are unable to stop using cannabis even though it's causing health and social problems in their lives. It mentions some symptoms to include using more cannabis than intended and using cannabis even though it causes problems at home, school, or work. Your cannabis use is weighing on you. Another big red flag that it is time to detox is if your cannabis use is affecting your well-being. If you are dwelling on how often you get high and it makes you guilty or even depressed, then maybe it is time to regroup. Sure, as we have reported before, some studies have suggested cannabis can help with some symptoms of depression.
Okay, I gotta go back a little bit here. You feel the need for certain. Oh, of course we do. Some of us use it for social anxiety.
Yep.
I mean, enough said. And then weighing on. I mean, I don't understand their thought process here. Studies it can help with symptoms of depression. So why not use it if you're depressed and it'll help you be happy?
Makes sense to me. I think they're using this in the context of opioids and alcohol, which is a different thing.
Completely different things. But other studies, like a 2017 study on the subject, found that cannabis reduces perceived symptoms of negative effect in the short term, but continued use may exacerbate baseline symptoms of depression over time. So it is too soon to tell whether cannabis is helping or hurting you in your unique mental state. Taking a break and accompanying that break with productive and healthy activities is a great way to get your mind right. You can always get high again down the road, but your happiness and mental health is paramount. And if you think cannabis is getting in its way, give it a rest.
And your routine has become lethargic. It can happen to the best of us, but sometimes we hibernate more than any human being is meant to. This lethargy can be heightened by cannabis use, as it can be incredibly easy to get high and do nothing but snack all day when it's below freezing outside. Sure, lazy days are part of winter, but every day, that might be pushing it. Consider your health. If, for example, you find that your clothes don't fit, or if you are winded walking up a flight of stairs that normally causes you no issue, then maybe consider a pivot in your lifestyle. A cannabis detox is often a great place to start.
Well,
I don't know if I agree with a lot of that in there.
I don't agree with pretty much all of it. What I do agree with is if your tolerance has gotten to a point where, and this kind of goes with the first one, if your tolerance has gotten to the point where, like, you would, you've doubled or tripled your cannabis use to get the same effect as you got a year ago, that is when it's time to take a cannabis detox break. And, I've done it. I mean, it doesn't take very long. And you don't even necessarily have to completely stop. Switch from joints to vapes. And I'm talking like a PAX or, something like that vapes your flower, not one of the ones that we reported on. Because it'll change it a bit. And that way you can detox without detoxing, because some of us need it for pain and some of us need it for social anxiety. So you don't really want to give that up and go to chemicals. you want to find a way to detox without having to give up your medicine. So change the way that you consume it, and that'll help you for sure.
Yep.
But that brings us to our special time, Glenn. And we are heading over to Mugglehead Magazine for our Mushie Moment. The U.S. Senators introduced bill to improve access to psilocybin and MDMA.
United States legislators are continuing to present bills to Congress that would change research regulations for scheduled substances that have been shown to possess valuable medical properties. United States Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey and Rand Paul of Kentucky introduced a bill on Thursday that would improve access to psilocybin and MDMA to promote continued research on the substances.
Bill S-5123 was introduced in the U.S. Senate during the last meeting and has now made its way to the Senate's Committee on the Judiciary. The Breakthrough Therapies Act would reclassify the medications from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 and facilitate access for research purposes for the patients with some mental health disorders. The bill could potentially help to facilitate the rollout of psychedelic-assisted therapies through FDA-approved expanded access pilot programs. Well, that just makes me friggin' glow with happiness.
Currently, the substances are classified as Schedule 1 drugs under the Controlled Substances Act, despite their positive life-altering potential for individuals suffering from conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder, major digestive disorder, anxiety, or substance abuse disorders. The introduction of the bill comes after the cannabis research bill reached President Biden's desk for signature. The bill was introduced last May, and it loosens regulations around accessing the plant for research purposes.
Recent studies suggest that some Schedule 1 substances, such as MDMA and psilocybin, could represent an enormous advancement for the treatment of severe PTSD, depression, and addiction, said Senator Booker. Booker added that the bill would reduce unreasonable regulations and rules which inhibit researchers from investigating the psychedelics and prevent patients from having access to an entire class of, effective medicine.
Yep. The bill receives praise and support from veterans. The introduction of the new bill inspired a long letter addressed to members of Congress from Martin R. Steele, a retired lieutenant general from the U.S. Marine Corps and CEO of Reason for Hope, and Brent M. Waters, the executive director of the organization. Reason for Hope, which is RFH, is a veteran mental health leadership coalition concerned with improved access to psychedelic therapies. The letter from RFH is essentially a plea to Congress to support the Breakthrough Therapies Act for the sake of veterans in particular, but also for the mental well-being of all American citizens.
The letter also discusses the tremendous healing potential of psychedelic substances like ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT. They are beautiful medicines, and the positive impact that they may have, like they have had on so many veterans. They are beautiful medications, and I can say from personal experience that they could make a huge difference. We urge Congress to swiftly pass the Breakthrough Therapies Act, which reasonably reduces the barriers to research and limited access of potentially life-saving treatments like MDMA and psilocybin-assisted therapy, said Steele.
And veterans should not be forced, nor should anyone else, to leave the country at great expense to access breakthrough therapies that can be safely provided and further studied in real-world settings here at home. Yeah. Steele added that the Breakthrough Therapies Act would ensure that veterans receive the treatments they deserve from the country they have served.
Wow, that's awesome. The Special Operations Associations of America, a veterans nonprofit organization advocating for the Special Operations Forces, the SOF community in the U.S., also voiced its approval of the new bill, discussed the suicide epidemic among veterans, and emphasized the desperate need for more impactful mental health treatments. Further, the Breakthrough Act therapies will personally serve SOF veterans who are in need of acute medical assistance due to PTSD, stress, PTSD, stress, a traumatic brain injury, or struggles with suicidality, and will ensure they receive the care that they deserve from the nation they fought for, says the letter from the organization. I tell you, like, this is one of those stories that just, whew, it gets me in the heart. And not just because they're fighting for veterans, but they're fighting for everybody with a mental injury to get this therapy. And they're recognizing that this therapy can be detrimental in saving lives. Like, I mean, it has saved my life. Between all of the medications that they mentioned there, I have used them all in my journey of healing. And it's wow, it's so beautiful to see governments and people in governments wanting to pay attention to this and wanting to legalize it so everybody can be able to get it without the great cost. Because I tell you, going for a psilocybin retreat or going for an iboga retreat, it's not a cheap thing.
There was a mention of a drug after that, or a plant after that. I can't remember what it was. Right after ibogaine.
5-MeO-DMT. It's the frog.
Oh, okay.
5-MeO-DMT is Bufo ovarius, and we take his secretions.
Don't lick the frogs.
and we vape them. That's what we were warned about there a couple of weeks ago. We don't lick the frogs. Yeah. So, and it's an incredibly powerful medication in fighting depression and PTSD. So I'm excited to see it legalized. I'm excited to see more practitioners, and I'm excited to see people with mental injuries and, you know, our veterans and everybody that needs help receive that help without costing them $5 million or something stupid.
And do you find a huge difference between ibogaine and like a mushroom therapy?
Yes.
What is the difference between them? Like, I know you can only do personally, but what's your difference?
I find that iboga is a much deeper spirit walk medicine. Mushrooms got me really far, and I have watched them work for people that have PTSD versus CPTSD. So they have one event that has caused them post-traumatic stress versus many events that have caused them post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
My PTSD started when I was 6, and there were various things over my lifetime that really made it worse. So I needed something to take me deeper, and iboga did that.
Okay. So one is like a beginner, and one is a little more advanced?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't even put it that way. I would say the beginner is the microdosing. You know, it's not that I got nothing from macrodoses or therapeutic doses of mushrooms. I need it more. And eventually I found iboga, and that's just what it is for some people. For some people, they'll get that experience with a hero dose of mushrooms. I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. But with that, it's the end. We're closing. That's our Reefer report from the Legacy420.com news desk. And for our date, it says, my notes say our date, November 24th, 2022. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for watching our Cannabis News broadcast. And don't forget, you can catch Reverend Callie and Al Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern here on the Pace Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponic superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.